Hey, everybody. You made it. You had nothing better to do but to come hang out with me and talk about email because there is nothing better to do. I'm excited to share with you today a couple of nuggets that I have learned from the person that is going to be addressing us today. You can see her there if you can figure out how these little Zoom icons work. And before we let her unmute, I'm going to try to embarrass her and um, tell you a couple things about Alyssa Dulin. So Alyssa has become a friend. I met Alyssa at ConvertKit Commerce, which is, for many of you, you already know, ConvertKit has a kind of a signature conference, if you will, for creators, which is very cool. I've asked Alyssa to talk about it a little bit at the end here, and I'll chime in on that. But we got to meet there, and since then I've had her on speed dial, if you will, with questions about today's topic and all sorts of other things. Because aside from just being an awesome all-around person and having the cutest kid in the entire state of Tennessee, has that been certified? It's a claim that's out there. She is the head of deliverability at ConvertKit. She's also in charge of creator growth there, which means that she is well positioned to talk about their feature that is crushing it right now called the Creator Network. And we're gonna call on her to do that a little bit. But when I rang her up and asked her to do this, she was the perfect person, because I know that many of my students and clients and friends who are here are on ConvertKit, but many are not. And Alyssa actually does a whole podcast for the industry called Deliverability Defined. And I think you actually get the definition of deliverability in the first episode. So I don't know what they talk about after that. But they have her and her co-host Melissa break down for us all things related to deliverability, which is super hyper important for what we're doing. You all know that. And recently, there have been some massive waves made. Did any of you panic like it was the GDPR thing of 2019 with the verified sending domain? I know I did a little bit. I kept ignoring it and until I had to. So I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about that stuff too. But she helped walk me through it and walk many people through it. So we're all kind of we're all looking at deliverability right now. Email's more important than ever for many of us. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to my friend Alyssa Dulin, the head of deliverability and creator growth at ConvertKit. Hi, Alyssa.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited
Well,
to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. One of the things that I want you to share with us today is about this was a new set of tools for me. I've been doing email a long time, and I completely ignored the tool that you're going to talk about here in just a minute. Oh, I had the slide here. I got to put that slide up.
I was wondering if you were gonna
Yeah,
skip to the fancy
yeah,
slides.
got the fancy slides. But so I'm going to turn the time over to Alyssa, because I think that she's put together a presentation for us. That's how important you all are, that she's taken that time. So Alyssa, you can go ahead, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to shut up for a minute, and I'll chime in as I
Perfect.
can, but I'm going to let you take it away.
Alrighty, let me actually present to you all here. So like Matt mentioned, we're going to do mainly a big overview of Google Postmaster tools. If you haven't heard of that before, I'll break down what it is, why it's so important, especially now with the latest changes that Matt talked about. Then we're also going to, kind of go all over the place with some deliverability best practices. Matt, how do you feel about questions in the chat? Is that a good place for questions to go?
Sorry, I had one of my furry friends just went nuts. Yes, let's go ahead and please put your questions in the chat, and I'll keep track of them, and I'll stop you as it makes sense, or I'll save them, and we'll kind of do a bunch all at the end.
Sounds good. I will ignore the chat until you unmute. Otherwise, I can't talk and read at the same time. It won't be good for anyone. So perfect. Let's get into it. So Google Postmaster tools is one of the big things we're talking about today. And what it is essentially a dashboard of data that you have access to, that Gmail provides, and really no other mailbox provider gives us this sort of data. So it's really, really helpful. I'll get into all of the different data points you can look at. But one key, well, I'll say a few key reasons why it's so important. Now, starting in February, Gmail has really locked down on the complaint rates that they allow email senders to receive before they'll start sending your messages to the spam folder. It's always been bad to get a lot of spam complaints, but Gmail is cracking down on it way harder starting in February with their new changes. And now the limit is 0.1% complaint rates, and you can monitor that here and see if you're hitting that. And one way to think about that complaint rate is that's one person marking your email as spam out of every 1,000 people who receive the message. So that is sort of the limit where Gmail has said, this is a red flag. We're going to start sending messages to spam. And they've said once it hits 0.3%, then it's really going to be more messages will go to spam. So if you didn't have this Postmaster tools dashboard, it would be really hard for you to know how you're doing with those limits, but now you are able to see them. So I will get more into that. But first, let's talk about domain reputation. That's one section of Google Postmaster tools. And this is going to tell you what Gmail thinks about your domain's reputation, which is again huge. No other mailbox provider is going to tell you this. And it's really, really helpful to understand how is your deliverability going at Gmail. If you're starting to see spam filtering, why? So your domain is essentially, the email address you're sending from, it's like after the @ symbol. That's your domain, and that's what you're adding to Google Postmaster tools. And I've included two different examples here. I monitor like hundreds of ConvertKit customers. Google Postmaster tools have a lot of different types of senders here. So this first one, you can see their domain reputation is high. That is the goal. With a high domain reputation, it's pretty safe to say your emails are going to the inbox at Gmail, as long as you don't have super high spam rates, which we're going to get into. But on the other end, you see this domain reputation says bad, and that pretty much guarantees all your emails are going to the spam folder. So it's sort of a range here. Once you hit medium, I see some people will have like, I would say 10-ish% of their emails at Gmail go to spam. Once you hit low, it's more than that. Once you hit bad, it's pretty much 100% of your emails are going to spam. So this is really, really important to keep an eye on. And we'll get into like how often I think you should keep an eye on this. But one thing I do want to mention here is with the new requirement to have a verified sending domain, this is more important than ever for you to have a high domain reputation. What we've been seeing at ConvertKit ever since everyone was required to set up a verified sending domain, that requirement was from Gmail and Yahoo, is that there were people who did have reputation issues, but they were using ConvertKit's domain to actually send their emails. That's what happens when you don't have a verified sending domain. ConvertKit's domain is authenticating the message for you, and they were totally fine because they were relying on ConvertKit's domain. So they were going to the inbox even with a bad domain reputation. But once you set up a verified sending domain, your domain reputation is weighed so much more heavily. And so we were seeing some people set up a verified sending domain and then suddenly have issues with open rates, emails going to spam. And when they set up Google Postmaster tools, they see their reputation as bad or low. And that was something that it wasn't an issue when they didn't have a verified sending domain. So I just want to highlight that's another reason this is more important than ever to keep an eye on and make sure that you have a healthy domain reputation.
So quick question. In the chat, somebody asked, when setting up Postmaster tools, are we entering our domain name, our URL, or are we entering a specific email address?
Just the domain. So for example, my email is alyssa@alyssadulin.com. I'm just going to add alyssadulin.com when I go into Google Postmaster tools, and it'll be whatever email address you use to send from ConvertKit or whichever email provider you use. just whatever's after the @ symbol is what you want to enter in Google Postmaster Tools.
Excellent.
And that kind of brings us to IP reputation. That's another really interesting thing you're able to see in Google Postmaster Tools. And if you're using an email provider like ConvertKit, this is actually the email provider's IP reputation, which is great because you can kind of get a glimpse into how they're doing. So this is from ConvertKit's Google Postmaster Tools. You can see our IP reputation is high, which is great. The only reason this would be your reputation is if you happen to be using a dedicated IP, which, you know, some people might be set up with something like that. Normally that's for people sending a lot of email. So if you're using, if you know you don't have a dedicated IP and you're using an email provider, this is probably your email platform's IP reputation.
So just to be clear, MailChimp, MailerLite, Flowdesk,
Yeah.
ConvertKit, this is going to be your reputation or their reputation, not mattmullen.com reputation.
Exactly. So if you're in that boat and you log in here and you see something you don't like, definitely reach out to their teams. They should be able to speak to it. They should have a team of people like we do who are constantly managing this reputation on your behalf. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to get into spam rate, which is probably now the most important information that Google Postmaster Tools shares with you. So, like I mentioned, you know, I've been monitoring Google Postmaster Tools for 7 years now, and I've seen spam rates spike for customers and it be no big deal. But starting in February, now we're seeing if spam rates spike, Google is really starting to send more messages to spam based on those spam complaints. So, like I mentioned, the goal is that your spam complaint rates are staying below 0.1%. Once you're actually in Google Postmaster Tools, you can hover over this blue line here and it'll tell you exactly what the spam rate was each day. But for example, on February 19th here, we can see for this person, it was 1%, which is way over Gmail's limits. And for this person, they are seeing issues with emails going to spam. So this is one place to have your eyes on pretty often. And we're going to get into some things you can do if you come in here and you do see that your spam complaint rates are high. We have lots of different ways for you to get those low again and things for you to dig into.
So a question about, this is specifically for a ConvertKit user, but will they see spam complaints rates in the ConvertKit stats as well?
This is such a great question. So Gmail, you know, they're weird in the way that they display this data. No one else does this, but they're also really strange in the way that they operate what we call a feedback loop. So let's use the ConvertKit example. If you go to your ConvertKit account, you're in your subscribers tab, and you go to complained subscribers, you're probably going to see a lot of Yahoo people there, maybe some Microsoft users, because those mailbox providers operate what we call a feedback loop. And what that means is if any Yahoo subscriber marks your message as spam, there's this automated mechanism where they immediately go back to ConvertKit and say, this person marked this message as spam. And ConvertKit will automatically put that person in a complained state and make sure they cannot receive any more messages from you, which is good for your deliverability. Gmail does not do this. I think it's, you know, for privacy reasons, they don't want to share what their users are doing. And that's not just to ConvertKit, they don't share it to anyone. So Gmail, if a Gmail user marks your message as spam, they don't show up in the complained section of your email provider, no matter which email provider it is, because they don't do that feedback loop. So this is the only way to get insights into how Gmail users are acting with your emails and if they're complaining. But unfortunately, they don't show up within your email provider's list of complained subscribers or complaint rates. Okay, I'll keep going. I am ignoring the chat, so Matt, let me know if there are any others that come up. I know Matt's recording this and we can send over the slide deck after the call, so don't feel like you have to write this all down really quickly, but it's just the basic steps on how to set up Google Postmaster Tools if you haven't already done it. Some of you might already be doing it in the background, but yeah, we will send over these instructions, so no stress. Okay, so now we're going to get into,
Just real quick, go back
yeah.
one slide,
Okay.
because I think that we can. So it is, I did this just to
hmm
piggyback on, and if I can do it. So really, these instructions right here, if you just jot this down real quick, you can do it. Postmaster.google.com. You just follow the little prompt there, just like most Google stuff. And then it's this text record. It's actually that when I look at this on the screen, it looks complicated. But when I went through it, Postmaster tools told me exactly what to do. Okay. And if you are stuck on the DNS side of things, a little thing that I found out during the whole verified sending domain deal was that I could send my DNS changes if I was confused to my host. I use Big Scoots, for example. I know that some people on this do as well. And Big Scoots was like, whoop, you got it, no problem, and took care of that for me. So if you try this, if you run into any of those issues, let me know, and I'll see if I can clarify that in the Facebook group or something. But anyway, just wanted to let you know that it is not that scary.
Yes, good call out. I know DNS records can feel really scary. I did look at the checks. I couldn't help myself. And there are some good questions here. Some people are logging into Google Postmaster tools and seeing no data to display at this time. Sometimes it takes some time for Gmail to populate this with your data. And sometimes you have to go ahead and start sending emails before they can populate the data. They're not always going to go back. In time, I guess, before you set up Google Postmaster tools. Some other things to note, if you haven't set up that verified sending domain yet in ConvertKit or whatever your email provider calls it, you actually won't see any data in Google Postmaster tools, which is another reason why a lot of people never set it up before. Google is looking at the domain that's authenticating the message, not to get too in the weeds. But if you weren't using a verified sending domain, your data or your domain is not authenticating the message. So Google isn't tying your data to this dashboard. So make sure you have a verified sending domain set up first, and then you will access some information in Google Postmaster tools. And you also have to send a minimum amount of mail to see data here. Gmail won't share what that minimum is, but they've said it's around a couple hundred emails in a given day. So if you haven't sent any mail, or at least less than a couple hundred emails lately, that's another reason you might not see any data.
Okay, good.
Okay. So let's there were a lot of questions that we're going to address later on. So I'll get into the more tactical stuff. So with these new changes, if you need to stay in the inbox, here are some things you have to accomplish. Spam rates, like we mentioned, must stay below the 0.1%. I do want to call out, that's not easy. I think easy is the right word. It's not easy. For your spam rates to stay below 0.1%, you really have to be following all of the best practices that we're going to get into. So no worries. But it takes work, I think, to maintain a spam rate below 0.1%. Your domain reputation should be high. You do need to have a verified sending domain in place, and you need to have a DMARC record on your domain. If you're a ConvertKit customer, you should have received lots and lots of communication about this. If you need help doing those last two steps, feel free to email me, Alyssa@convertkit.com, and I can help you get set up. If you're not using ConvertKit, I highly recommend reaching out to your email provider. They should have a team that can help you. And at ConvertKit, we do have a new feature, if you haven't seen it, where you can actually set up the verified sending domain and the DMARC in just a few clicks without even leaving ConvertKit. We connect to your host and we add those DNS records for you. So that makes it really easy. If it's something you've been putting off, with this new tool we have in place, it should be you should be able to do this within a few minutes and not even have to leave ConvertKit.
Okay, a couple of questions from the chat.
Mm-hmm.
People are rightfully concerned about this 0.1% number.
Yeah.
And we know that it fluctuates every day. So what range of dates of spam rate is taken into account, or is it a dynamic number? I have a few days of 0.1% and a bunch of 0 days and a few days with some spikes beyond that. And then the other question that's kind of similar is, are we aiming for 0.1% over X time period, or are we like in danger zone anytime the spam rate for a single email goes over 0.1%?
Yeah, those are great questions. Gmail is not going to kind of share that secret sauce. It's all algorithms. So what they have said is that once you hit 0.1%, I think even one time, you're susceptible to some messages going to spam. And then once it hits 0.3%, you're in bigger trouble with them. But it's definitely, I do think the consistency of the complaints matters to what they're going to decide to do with your mail. If you just get a spike every now and then that's 0.1%, I wouldn't be super concerned. If you're seeing regular spikes of 0.1% and then higher, that is a good sign that something should be cleaned up and you could start to see Gmail send messages to spam.
Just anecdotally, I had a experience with this when I first turned on one newsletter. And it's a pretty aggressive newsletter, meaning I capture subscribers and I email them a lot, and I'm pretty aggressive about it. And at first, it was like this strange cardiac arrest. No, not cardiac arrest. That would be flatline. It was all over the place. It was like Echo at Disneyland with her Dole Whip there. It's all over the place. So I was like really freaked out about it. So I actually had to turn off my remove the verified domain feature for a second. I did a pruning, and then it leveled out, and that really helped me a lot and got me a little bit more regular. Does that kind of jive, Alyssa?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too with senders. Like the example I had in the spam rate, let me go back to it. So this is a customer that was definitely having some spikes here and there, and they were totally fine. Their domain reputation was still high. But now, like how you're seeing their spam rates just kind of go up and up on February 19th, if I were to zoom out here, Google Postmaster tools will let you do a wider time frame. This is just a screenshot, so I can't change it. But you would see that their complaints started to spike more, and it started to spike way more often. And that's when Google started sending their messages to spam. So it does matter like how often the spikes are happening and how high do they get. But I would say if they're exceeding 0.1% regularly and start to go higher and higher than that more often, then definitely I would take action that we'll get into.
What can cause a spike like that?
Lots and lots of things. I would say list bombing is one of the top ones. I don't know how much you want me to get into it now. I know we talk about it in the future. That's a huge one.
Okay.
And not keeping your list clean, people coming into the list who don't really either want to be on the list or are confused about how they got on the list. That's obviously one of the top ones. Okay, we're going to get into more tangible things, and then if we don't answer your questions, of course, let me know in the chat. So some ways to stay out of the spam folder with all of this in mind. I wanted to call out that replies are like a deliverability superpower, and a lot of people don't know that. So your domain reputation is actually determined by your subscribers and what they're doing with your messages. Are they opening them, clicking them? Are they replying to them? Or are they marking them as spam? So those people marking your messages as spam, that's a big detractor to your domain reputation. And replies are sort of the opposite. That's a big plus to your domain reputation. And it's something that if you utilize it really well, this can help you be more, kind of just have more protection against landing in the spam folder, because a reply is telling Gmail, people really like these emails. They are actually more transactional, one-to-one, than just someone blasting out a list and that list not responding. So I've seen some people get really fancy with how they solicit replies, and then some people are just keeping it pretty basic. But either way, here are some examples. So in their very first email, this is one I use that I really like. I kind of introduce myself to subscribers and then ask them to reply and introduce themselves back. And it's fun, I get some really nice replies. I don't always reply back to them. That's totally fine. I don't think people are expecting you to, but it does help boost replies right off the bat. And you can, of course, make that your own and have your own sort of prompt. One really extra fancy thing I helped someone set up, I wasn't even sure it was going to work, and it did, and it was awesome, is that in his welcome email, he says, reply freebie, for example, and I'll send you PDF that you signed up for. So he doesn't give people the PDF right after they sign up for the list. First, they get this email from him, and then they have to reply. And we set up this custom filter in his own G Suite address that if he gets a reply from someone and it has the word freebie in it, it automatically kicks off this email to them with the freebie. So ever since he did that, his replies have gone through the roof, and his deliverability has been really good. Another one that our CEO at ConvertKit, Nathan Barry, really likes to talk about is asking people questions throughout your emails. For example, like, what is your biggest challenge with XYZ right now? So I could say, what's your biggest challenge with deliverability right now? You get great replies. And then also you can use that for future content, which helps a lot if you're struggling with knowing what to write about, what do people want to hear about. So it kind of, is a bonus in two ways. And then one Matt mentioned that he's seen before that's really awesome is you can ask people multiple choice questions. It could be like a fun way to do a trivia or a poll in your email or whatever it may be. And then it's really low friction for that person. They can just hit reply and say A, and that's it. They don't have to write their whole life story to you. And it's kind of a fun way for them to participate with your emails and for it to feel like you're building a relationship with your audience.
And how do you feel about clicks versus replies? Because a click would indicate that they're at least, a human is engaging with the email, but maybe it's, how does that factor in?
Yeah, so clicks are great. They're a positive signal for sure. They're just not as strong as replies because, people are clicking on Gaps emails and Target's emails too. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But a reply is just this kind of extra signal that this isn't just a bulk email to me. I want to respond to the sender. So clicks are still great. You should try and get clicks, but replies are even better.
Are you seeing a difference in the people that get replies are more in the inbox than they are in the promo tab, or can you see that?
Yes, I would say getting people to reply to your emails more heavily is a great way to go to that primary tab because that's one of the things Gmail's looking at to determine if your message is promotional or not.
Yeah, the way I was thinking about that is that because Gmail has to figure out, all right, there's emails from Banana Republic, and then there's emails from Grandma. They probably shouldn't intermingle. And so the promo tab is actually a good place so that, because the other alternative is that they just go to junk. But people don't reply to Banana Republic, but they do reply to Grandma. So that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Should you be asking for reply every email?
I think if you can do it, if it makes sense for you, yes. Like the more you can do it, the better for your deliverability. And I think it's like, if someone doesn't want to reply, they're not going to feel like they have to. I don't think it bothers people at all. If anything, I think it makes, I think people like having that open form of communication with you, even if they don't think you're going to reply back, but just to know that they can, I think is helpful.
And to be clear, out of office replies don't count, right?
Right. Yeah, Gmail does know when something is an out of office reply. We actually have a header in ConvertKit emails so that if you're using ConvertKit, you actually don't receive back a bunch of out of office replies when you send out a broadcast. So Gmail does know the difference.
And Katie asked a question that I get from my clients quite often because many of you even mentioned in the chat that it can be overwhelming to ask people a question and then you get people who actually want to tell you their life story and whatever. I think it's okay to say something like, I read every email or whatever. It implies that you aren't necessarily replying to every email. Or you could straight up be honest with people. I just get a lot of messages. I love to hear from you. I may not be able to reply to every single one of them. If you need to put that disclaimer and that makes you feel better down in the bottom, go for it. And I think most people kind of get that too. So
Yeah, I get it. And one thing I have done in my own, and I have a very small email list, and I even think that it's overwhelming to get replies, is I set up a custom label in my Gmail. And anytime someone replies to my email newsletter, it goes into that label and it kind of stays away from my main inbox. And every now and then, when I feel like it, I'll kind of click on it and scroll through and see if there's anything I need to respond to. And then if not, I just sort of read through them and let them be. But that, I don't know, just having it in that separate little bucket helps me mentally.
yeah, cool.
Alrighty. So I mentioned this. I know someone mentioned it in the chat that this happened to them. One of the reasons why I see great senders have high complaint rates every now and then is that they might have what we call list bombing happening, which is when people are added to your email list by a bot and they don't actually want to be on your list. If it's interesting, I can tell you why this happens. I don't know, Matt, if that's
Yes,
okay.
I found this very fascinating.
Okay. So I'll do the quick version, but one reason why this happens, which is crazy, is that a bad person will buy like a list of bank logins, for example, which are someone's email address and their password. And they want to get into those bank accounts and take money out. But they don't want that person to get an alert from their bank that someone has logged into their account. So they take that list of email addresses and they pump them through as many sign up forms as they can find on the internet. And then those people suddenly look at their phone and they have thousands and thousands of emails coming in, and they don't see the message from their bank that says, hey, you just withdrew $10,000 or whatever it is. So there are people like you all and me who are those forms sending out those emails to people who didn't sign up for them. And this happens all the time. It's very, very common. I know it sounds crazy, but I see it every day. And you don't want this to happen to you because it means people are getting on your list who didn't want to be there, and now they're marking you as spam. So the best way to protect yourself from this is using some sort of reCAPTCHA or bot protection on your forms. If you use ConvertKit's forms embedded directly on your website, we do this for you. And we do it in a very smart way where most people won't even see a reCAPTCHA. We have this automated bot scoring that is looking at all sorts of data to determine if someone appears to be a bot, and will only show the reCAPTCHA if they have a high bot score. So for most people, they won't have to do any reCAPTCHA. If they look like a bot, they might see a reCAPTCHA. And if they can't fill it out, they won't be added to your list. So that has been amazing for ConvertKit customers who use our forms. And that's great if you're in that camp. If you're not using ConvertKit forms directly on your website, maybe you're using some other form provider. I know there's so many out there. Then you'll need to see what options they have in place. And if they have a reCAPTCHA option, I highly recommend turning it on because it's way better than having high complaints. Another option is double opt-in, which I know is a highly debated topic. So reCAPTCHA is like number one option. Double opt-in can be helpful if you're actively having a bot issue. They are still going to receive one email from you, which isn't great, but at least they're not added to your list and they're receiving emails from you, multiple times a week. If you really don't want to do double opt-in, I think you can get away with skipping it if you have that reCAPTCHA in place, like I mentioned. You're keeping a really close eye on your list and complaints so that bot issues are caught quickly. I know people like Matt are on top of these things, and if he sees any signs of bots in his account, like he reaches out to me ASAP. But then sometimes I work with senders who, if I go into their account, I'm going to see some obvious bot added addresses that have been going for years and they had no idea. And the names are gibberish, So if you're in that camp where you don't really want to keep a close eye on your list and you want people to just be able to come through, I would recommend you set up double opt-in so that it's sort of doing that work for you of filtering people out.
A couple of questions. I'm going to try to tackle a couple of them very quickly. So does anyone know if Mediavine Spotlight subscribe forms are protected? I suspect that because they have a double opt-in kind of thing happening there. This is a guess. I don't know, Alyssa, I don't know if you know any differently, but they do have a little checkbox that is a secondary. It would be hard for a bad apple to create a script that just hammers that form because there's an extra step that's required for them to sign up. So I suspect, that's my guess, that it's probably pretty good. And that's going to be a case for any Grow form. Raptive doesn't really have their own forms other than Slickstream, and Slickstream doesn't really work that way. So probably, I don't, that was for Dr. V. I don't know if that's helps you. Somebody else asked, how do you figure out it's a bot? Well, you're probably going to figure out all at one time. You're going to go into your account and you're going to see that you got a whole bunch of new subscribers, and you're going to be, oh my goodness, I must have been on Rachel Ray or Good Morning America or something like that. And then you realize that they all have kind of strange characters in their addresses or something similar about them, and they look suspicious. That's usually how you figure out. If you want, just message me and I'll probably be able to tell you. I was advised to have double opt-in to keep out bots and spam. Do you think reCAPTCHA is better? So just to be clear on that, Alyssa, go ahead and answer that one.
Yeah. reCAPTCHA is typically a little bit smarter and better at getting out the bots. And one reason, again, it's better than double opt-in is because if they're a bot, they're not even added to your list. With double opt-in, everyone is still getting at least one email from you, and they might mark that first email as spam, that double opt-in email. So it's not foolproof, but the main perk is that they're not getting totally added to your list.
Right. Yeah. So it was asked, does that mean if we have forms triggered by a link click, they are safe? Not necessarily, because somebody could grab the JavaScript code or something of that form itself and pound it. Again, this is for me, most of my clients are on ConvertKit, and I very rarely run into this. It has happened a handful of times over the last 5 years, and my cleanup process has been very quick and swift, and ConvertKit's always there to help. But obviously it is a little pain in the patootie when that does happen. And so it can be, I think, a scary proposition right now with the whole spam complaint thing. So the reCAPTCHA is actually it's given me a ton of comfort, and I'm on this stuff all day long, and I can't get into my own forms without being reCAPTCHA'd every single time now, because ConvertKit says, this is not normal behavior. Who are you? And
Yeah.
So that's how it goes.
Yeah, we get that sometimes, but it is suspicious to visit the same form over and over again. So you kind of look like a bot. So it's doing the right thing. One other thing I wanted to bring up when we were talking about identifying bot signups, I would say most of the time it is like they have gibberish first names, or they're, lots of .ru addresses, things like that. Sometimes it's not so easy. And the way I figure it out is whenever I see someone struggling with high complaints, I really like to go to their complaint subscribers and just start opening a bunch in a new tab and look for trends. And if I'm seeing that a lot of these people complaining received one email and they complained from that email, and it's like the welcome email, it's, like, here are the recipes you signed up for, or, something like that, then it's clear they didn't want that email. They didn't sign up to be there. So they somehow got on the list without wanting to be on the list. And most of the time that happens through list bombing. So I would say another thing to look for is, are people complaining about the very first email they received? And that's sort of a red flag that you might have some list bombing on whichever form that's happening for.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. What else you got? You got anything more? There's more of these slides?
There's so much more.
So much
Okay.
more. Okay.
So much more. So I think this question came up in the chat. I recommend you're checking these things at least once a week. I know that might seem like a lot, but things can change really quickly, especially with what we just mentioned about list bombing. You want to make sure you're noticing changes quickly, and the quicker you react to things, the less likely that you're going to be kind of stuck in spam jail with Gmail, because you can adjust fast. So you can set a calendar reminder if you need to. Maybe you make this part of your Monday morning routine or something. But the things I would check are your spam rates and your reputation in Google Postmaster tools. For the couple people who say that they're not seeing data there and they send more than 200 emails, feel free to email me again, Alyssa@convertkit.com, and I can take a look and see what's going on. And then some other things to check.
Can you do that even if they're not ConvertKit? Or do you have?
I could ask some questions to help them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear.
I won't have access to anything, but I can coach you. Um, Other things to check. So open rate trends. As we probably all know on this call, open rates are not the most accurate things in the world, especially with Apple automatically opening a lot of emails, but they are still helpful when it comes to trends. If you're seeing open rates are typically, within the same, like I would say 5% range, that's pretty good. If you wake up one day and see your open rates have cut in half, that's usually a sign something's going on. So that's why it's good to make sure that you're keeping an eye on your open rate trends. Your complaint rate in your ESP, like I mentioned, that won't include any Gmail users, but it's still really important to keep an eye on. And then your bounce rate in your ESP is also helpful. That should be below 2% usually is a healthy bounce rate. Anything more than that might be a sign that something's going on. Either people are getting into your list that are invalid addresses, or your emails are being blocked for some reason. One thing I wanted to call out is if you're a ConvertKit customer, there are some new ConvertKit broadcast analytics that make this a lot easier to monitor. This was really recently announced, so not everyone has seen it, but there's a new section for complaints and a new section for bounces, and you can see your complaint rate and your bounce rate. So that makes it a lot easier to monitor complaint rates with your broadcast and bounce rates. All righty, list cleaning. I know this is a popular deliverability topic. The answer I usually give people that ask about list cleaning might be frustrating. It's like an it depends answer. But it does, I would say, depend on the situation you're in. If you are looking at Google Postmaster tools and everything looks great, you don't have any deliverability issues, then you could probably clean your list every 6 months and be fine, as long as you're keeping a close eye on everything. But if you are seeing elevated complaints, like I think a few people in the chat are saying they're seeing some elevated complaints, or you're seeing some reputation issues, then I think you should be more aggressive, such as every 90 days. And in ConvertKit now, you can have that set up to clean automatically. So in case you didn't know about this, it's been super, super helpful with the customers I've worked with. You can set up an automation, and again, you'll get this slide deck. And if you click on this, it actually takes you to the automation. So you can just click use this automation and it will pop up in your account and you can edit it however you want. But the way that this is going to be set up to work is that anytime anyone comes through your form, we're going to wait for however long you want. You can set this to 90 days or 180 days, but then you're going to check, have they opened an email ever? And if the answer is no, you can put them through a re-engagement sequence if you want, or you could remove that step completely and go ahead and unsubscribe them. But in this example, there's a re-engagement sequence to try and win them back. Then we wait 10 days. If they still haven't opened an email, they automatically get unsubscribed. So this is a great way to have your list being cleaned in the background. You don't even have to think about it. And yeah, it's pretty easy.
I want to echo this. I am using this. And now, if you've taken my course or worked with me, you know most of my stuff is in rules. So this isn't a visual automation. One of the things about ConvertKit is there's about 5 different ways to do every single task. Visual automations, though, this is the only way to do this. You can't do this in rules. So I highly recommend it. It has saved my bacon with one newsletter that really needed regular cleaning because I was so aggressive with getting new subscribers. So you might want to, I guess I'm just piggybacking here. You're going to want to spend some time on this. It's not that complicated once you get in. It's just a workflow, this, then that, then this. And if you use their pre-built automation, you can probably tweak it to your liking.
Exactly. And that takes us into another kind of related topic is the creator network. If you don't know what that is, ConvertKit has this new feature. We also call it recommendations, where you can join, you can recommend some other creators. There's a really nice discover tab where you can search for people. You can type in, something about your niche and see who else is there. And then, the best part is other people can recommend you. And what that means is anytime they get a new subscriber, that subscriber is going to see a pop-up like this, and it might have your face here with your email bio. And those people who subscribe to their list can also subscribe to yours if they want to or not. So this has been really huge for a lot of ConvertKit customers. For a lot of customers in the network, this is now their top source of new subscribers. An average person has gained 922 subscribers, but there are some people who've gained over 200,000. And then, of course, there are plenty who have not gained anyone yet because they haven't found the right match. But wanted to call this out if you aren't aware of it. And then I also have tips on how to be in the network and also keep your deliverability really healthy. So if you're using the Creator Network, similar to what I just showed with the automatic list cleaning, I would want you to have a more aggressive one specifically for Creator Network. So in this last screenshot where it says, if someone comes through any form, I would want you to have one that says, if they come through the Creator Network specifically, and then send them a welcome email that includes a really clear unsubscribe link in case they got there by accident. And then wait about 30 days. And if they haven't opened a single message and they came through the Creator Network, I would go ahead and unsubscribe them. Since this is such a different way of getting new subscribers, they don't really know who you are. They did subscribe. They don't have that built up just background with you. And I think it's helpful to keep your list super clean by getting rid of anyone who comes through the Creator Network and doesn't open an email in the first 30 days.
I'm going to jump in with some of the questions. A lot of people are asking about the time period of those stats, and I'm not going to say that's not necessarily irrelevant, that it's irrelevant, but it's more of a signal of people of all sizes are enjoying the Creator Network. I have clients that are getting hundreds and thousands of new subscribers per month, and then some that are just getting started with it as well. So rather than dwell so much on the exact numbers here, I think what Alyssa is talking about, and by the way, we are going fast on this Creator Network stuff because that wasn't the main point of today, but I asked Alyssa to bring this because she's in charge of it. And she knows all about that. I could do an entire separate, probably half hour just on the Creator Network and how to maximize it. But here's my tip for today. Alyssa, you tell me if I'm wrong. The biggest way to grow if you are using the Creator Network is to create a pod of people that will recommend you and you'll recommend them, and that you have similar sign-up patterns. Okay. Imagine that you're a big blogger and you get hundreds and thousands of subscribers every month, and somebody recommends you. You're probably not somebody that's just getting started in the business recommends you. You're going to like, oh, thank you, that's helpful, but they're not going to turn around and recommend you. That's just not going to happen. However, some other people that are similar sizes to you need your recommendations and you need theirs. And so it's that joint need that really helps. It is sci-fi. So pod. And I hear you. It looks like there's some desire for some additional Creator Network time that we'll spend on that. But it's been very, very helpful. It's a really cool hack. It's a really cool list growth hack. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been great. And the time period question was interesting. It's hard to make that helpful just because there's some people who have now been in the network for almost a year. Some of those people are the ones with, over 200,000 subscribers. And then there are some who just joined, today. But there's one account I'm thinking of in particular that joined probably 2 months ago, and they've already received 10,000 subscribers, which is awesome. And I agree with your pod strategy, Matt. One thing that my team at ConvertKit does is we help people who want to find a pod that would work well for them. So that's another thing. I'm just giving out my email like crazy, but if you want to get into the Creator Network or want to get help with finding the right matches, you can email me about that too, Alyssa@convertkit.com.
Awesome.
Alrighty. So just to recap some actions to take today, it sounds like a lot of you have already done these things, which is great. Is to set up Google Postmaster tools, check your domain reputation and your spam rates. And then let's get into what to do if your domain reputation is below high or spam rates are greater than 0%, 0.1%. So what I would do first is investigate your recent complaints and try to look for any trends. So again, the way I like to do this in ConvertKit is to go through your list of complained subscribers, just start opening a bunch of them up in a new tab. What do they have in common? I find so many interesting things when I do this for people. Sometimes I do this for accounts and I'm like, did you realize you're sending people 3 emails a day? And they have no idea. They're like, oh my gosh, all my automations are overlapping. I didn't mean for that to happen. I'm like, yeah, they received, like so many emails from you, 3 a day for a week, and then they marked it as spam. And I'm seeing multiple people do that. Sometimes, again, I unearth some list bombing through this. I say, everyone who's complained recently complained about the very first email and they came from this specific form. I think that form has some issues. Let's make sure it has reCAPTCHA or bot protection on it. There are all sorts of things you can unearth here. So sort of go through those complaints, try to get in the head of the subscriber, what's going on here, and what can I do to kind of stop the bleeding. Another thing to do is to clean your list of unengaged subscribers if you haven't done that in a while. We have the cold subscriber tab in ConvertKit. You can tag those people, try and send them a re-engagement email if you want, or you can just go ahead and remove them, whichever method you want to go with. If you are on a pro plan at ConvertKit, you do have subscriber scoring, which I really like to use for list cleaning. And if you don't want to go full out with cold subscribers, you can remove anyone with like a 1 star, which I think means they haven't opened in a year. So you can kind of start there and then go to 2 stars and so on. And again, encouraging subscribers to reply to your emails. That's something I would make a plan for. Go into your existing emails and think about how you can add replying as a step there.
Just looking at the comments here, somebody switched to ConvertKit, and that day the spam complaint shot up. That's actually pretty normal when you change email providers, right? Because Gmail in this case they're used to emails from Alyssa Dulin coming from one block of IPs, and all of a sudden it starts coming from another one. They kind of put you in a little probationary period. Is that correct?
Potentially. Michelle's comment is really an interesting one, and a good one is that sometimes if you see a spike in spam complaint rates, it actually means your message went to the inbox more than it usually did. So maybe those people who complained hadn't been seeing your emails in a really long time with that other email provider. You switch to ConvertKit, all your emails into the inbox, and people are like, what is this? I didn't sign up for this, or it's been a really long time. I have seen that before, which is really interesting. And another thing could be if your old email provider, if you weren't, like I said, using like a verified sending domain sort of setup, then the spam rates you received there actually wouldn't show up in Google Postmaster tools. So that's another thing that could be happening.
A little tip that worked for me on one newsletter where I was changing the frequency, and I'm actually doing this on a lot more of my newsletters now, is I'm actually putting the unsubscribe link up top, up high, just below the logo. I have one where it says, done with this, click here to unsubscribe. And it's in, 10-point font. It's not huge or anything. But I just want to make that real simple. I would encourage them to unsubscribe versus go cold or go to spam.
Yes, that's a great one.
Okay, there was.
Do you want to show your examples, Matt?
Yeah, I can.
I can stop sharing.
Yes, I do have an example, don't I? Well, maybe not. I don't remember where I put it, and I've got like 80 tabs open. But I want to address one other question. Katie asked, "What's the best way to see how many people joined our list from Creator Network?" Again, sorry, this is for ConvertKit people only. When you go to your subscribers tab, you'll see all your subscribers there. You see that big chart up top. When you go up to the date range, there's a little funnel, it's a funnel thing. And if you click on that, you can filter by different forms. So you just go through the little drop down and find people who signed up by different forms. If you want to know everybody that's in the Creator Network or signed up through your Creator Profile form or any other specific form. If you want to create groups of those, you can do that in there too. You can also, once you start learning about segments, you can create a segment that'll allow you to track that a little bit easier too. So that's without going too deep into the platform. Oh, here we go.
Sorry,
Let's go deep into the platform.
Well, I just also wanted to call out, because this is also a pretty new feature, the subscribers tab in the Creator Network. So if you go to Grow Recommendations, you'll get this page, and then you can see, all the people recommending you. But if you go to subscribers, that shows you all of the subscribers who have come through the Creator Network. You can see who they were recommended by. You can see the average open rate, which is, again, just really helpful to see unsubscribe rate, things like that. So And this is another way I've seen people notice list bombing. If you look through here, you might see a weird trend. It's just been a really helpful tab. And you can also take action based on this. You can tag people or whatever you want to do, add them to an automation right here.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up here with a couple of parting thoughts. Well, number one, Alyssa, nice work today. I mean, you woke up and you said, I'm going to bring it, and you did. And so I think you can give yourself a pat on the back. So a couple of quick things for those of you, and you all know what a ConvertKit shill I am. And so I'm just going to do it again. If you have been thinking about switching platforms, you see the type of people that we have over there that have really helped me out. Alyssa is one of a great team there. They'll give you 30 days free when you use my link here. Whoop, what kind of digital marketer would I be if I didn't give you an affiliate link? And I'll drop that in the chat. But they will also, and this might be the thing that you've been missing, they will also migrate you, meaning if you're on Flowdesk or MailChimp or MailerLite or ActiveCampaign or wherever you are, they'll actually help you move your sequences and your stuff. Now, if you are new, most of you I recognize, and we've talked and chatted. If you're kind of new to me, you may not know that I have a course. It's called Email on Autopilot. If you are interested in taking advantage of that, what that course does is it is how to grow your list, what to send that'll get opened and clicked, how to use email marketing automation to make that easy. And that's half strategy and then half how to do it in ConvertKit. So if you're switching to ConvertKit or you're on ConvertKit, you've never done this, you can use the code Alyssa loves you at checkout, and you can get 20% off of that. Man, I'm shilling left and right. I don't want to be the only shill. Let's have Alyssa wrap it up by telling us about the craft and commerce thing, because there's something happening on that today.
Yes.
Right?
So I think it's tomorrow that, and I'm just going to share my screen too. So if you don't mind, so people can have a visual. So like Matt mentioned, he and I met in person at Craft and Commerce, and I've met so many amazing people at Craft and Commerce. I think that's probably the best part is all the people you meet. This is ConvertKit's annual conference, and it's so motivating and inspiring. You get to hang out with other creators, listen to really great speakers. There's workshops, and it's just so much fun. If you go to, let's see, I have a thing in my way, conference.convertkit.com, you can watch a little video of the last event, which is fun. It's a really great event. It is in Boise, Idaho, which I had never been to. It's a really great city. So highly recommend it. But the early bird ticket sales end tomorrow, which is why we wanted to call it out. And then the price will go up after that. So if you're interested in going, it's really, really fun. Highly recommend it.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, if there's, just because we're at the top of the hour and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, we'll wrap it up here. If you have any follow-up questions that we didn't get to for Alyssa or, I don't know, Lana or Karen has a lot to say on these things. Just send them to me and I'll make sure that the right person gets them. And I'm so grateful that you came. Thanks so much. This has been a lot of fun. And Alyssa, one last time, you rock. Appreciate you. All right, everybody.
Thank you. So do you.
If you have a great weekend, and if you do anything besides emailing, you're doing it wrong. All right, we'll see you.